You know, your brain is basically the command center for, well, for everything you do, think, and feel. But it's also incredibly fragile. So in this explainer, we're going to demystify two of the biggest threats to that command center: stroke and traumatic brain injury. Just think about that for a second. What would happen? All those complex signals that keep you moving, talking, thinking, they just stop. It's a really terrifying thought, and it shows you exactly what's at stake during a neurologic emergency. All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with what it means for the brain to be in crisis. Then we're going to decode what a brain attack or stroke really is. After that, we'll get into the dangers of physical impact, and we'll wrap up with how you can actually build a defense plan for your own brain. Okay, let's start at the beginning, a neurologic emergency. This is any situation where the brain's most important functions get suddenly and severely disrupted. And when that happens, every single second counts. So what it really boils down to are two main problems. First, you've got a perfusion problem. That's a fancy word for a crisis in blood flow. That's what we see in a stroke. The second is a cognition problem, which is often caused by some kind of trauma, and that leads to what we call a traumatic brain injury, or TBI. And believe me, this isn't some rare thing. Just look at this number. Nearly 800,000 people in the US alone have a stroke every single year. That is a staggering figure, and it's exactly why understanding these conditions is so important for all of us. All right, let's zoom in on that first type of emergency, the stroke. You'll often hear it called a brain attack, and that's to make it sound just as urgent as a heart attack. A good way to think of it is like a sudden power outage hitting one specific part of your brain. At its core, a stroke is basically a plumbing problem. See, your brain needs a constant, non-stop supply of blood to get oxygen. If that supply gets cut off, even for just a few minutes, brain cells start to die. That process of cell death is called infarction, and that's what causes the lasting damage. Now, strokes come in two main flavors. The most common one, by far, we're talking 87% of them, is an ischemic stroke. Just think of it as a blockage, like a clog in a pipe that's caused by a blood clot. The other type is hemorrhagic. This one's not a clog. It's a leak. A blood vessel actually bursts and bleeds into the brain, and the pressure from that blood causes all the damage. And the start of a hemorrhagic stroke can be just terrifyingly sudden. This quote, this is what doctors hear all the time. It's not just a bad headache, you know? It's a sudden, explosive pain that tells you something catastrophic is happening inside your skull. So, how can you spot a stroke if it's happening to someone near you? Well, there's this amazing acronym, FAST, and it's a total lifesaver. F is for face. Ask the person to smile. Does one side of their face droop? A is for arms. Ask them to raise both arms. Does one drift downwards? S is for speech. Is their speech all slurred or strange? And T is the most important one. It's time to call 911 right away. Okay, let's shift gears now. We've talked about an internal threat. Now let's talk about an external one. Traumatic brain injury, or TBI. This is damage that's caused by an outside force, not a problem with the blood vessels inside.
So a TBI happens when a force, like from a fall, a car crash, or a blow to the head, causes physical damage. Unlike a stroke, this isn't about blood flow getting blocked. This is about physical trauma, direct harm to the brain tissue itself.
The damage from a TBI usually happens in two waves. The first one is called the primary injury. This is the immediate damage that happens right at the moment of impact. We're talking bruising, bleeding, and the actual tearing of delicate brain tissue. But the danger doesn't stop there. The secondary injury is what can happen in the hours and even days after the hit. You can think of it like an aftershock from an earthquake. The brain starts to swell, blood flow can get choked off, and pressure builds up inside the skull, which can cause even more damage than the first impact. So how do doctors figure out how serious a TBI is? Well, one of the key tools is something called the Glasgow Coma Scale, or GCS. A high score, like a 13 to 15, means a milder injury, with maybe no loss of consciousness at all. But as that score drops, the injury gets more severe, and that usually reflects a longer time being unconscious and more significant brain impairment. Okay, so now that we get the threats, let's talk about defense. This last part is all about simple, real things you can do to protect your brain from both stroke and TBI. For strokes, it really comes down to the ABCs of heart and brain health. A is for aspirin, but only if your doctor says it's right for you. B is for blood pressure control, which is a huge one. C is for cholesterol management, and S is for smoking cessation. Seriously, managing these four things can dramatically lower your risk. And preventing TBI? A lot of it is just common sense safety. Buckle up every single time you're in a car. Wear a helmet when you're on a bike or playing contact sports. Make your home a little safer to prevent falls, which are a major cause of TBIs. And of course, never ever drive impaired. These simple things are your best line of defense. At the end of the day, your brain is the essence of who you are. It holds all your memories, your personality, your future. So after hearing about the risks and the solutions, here's the final question, and it's for you. What's one change you're going to make starting today to keep your command center safe?